Every Return of the King tie-in game has been an overall improvement over its predecessor, but the thing that interests me the most in the Java version is if the sound effects are better in any way. Nice. This is not music from The Lord of the Rings, but I'll take it. And here it is. Well, let's be fair, these ones are slightly less annoying than in the Mobile 2 Towers. Hi, my name is Stanislav Costiuc and I am a game designer. Today we'll discuss the 2003 Return of the King movie tie-in game for mobile phones. If you've been looking for the action game released on PC or consoles, or the handheld release for GBA, I have videos about those titles too. You'll find links to them in the description and YouTube cards. If you're interested in checking out a more obscure tie-in version, feel free to keep watching. Unlike the 2 Towers for mobile phones, which was a turn-based strategy game, Return of the King is sort of an action platformer. Is it enjoyable to play? Let's find out, as always, with the help of my Stasocritic scoring system, the first category of which is design. This is the most important category of Stasocritic with the biggest weight, 4, as the way a game is structured and designed is what defines our enjoyment the most. Now, you might be watching the footage and think that this is a very awkward game to play. You would be only partially right. Any single input is actually very responsive. When you press right, the character will immediately go to the right. Attack comes without any delay, likewise with jumping. The awkwardness comes from chains of inputs though. If you want to attack several times in a row, or move right and then up and then right again, and so on, then you'll find yourself repeating button presses often because the game doesn't seem to respond to your inputs in those cases. So yes, sadly it is not exactly an enjoyable game to play. You'll find plenty of other issues in the game. For example, jumping is faster than walking, so that is certainly the preferable way to move around. Sometimes you'll be respawned right above holes that will just kill you again and again until you run out of lives. The ability to backstab enemies for double damage is appreciated, but the opponents don't really pose any sort of interesting or enjoyable challenge whatsoever. Sometimes it's not clear what particular ground level is going to detect your jump landing. Look, I could go on, but we can summarize everything with a single statement. Return of the King is not a well-implemented game. But going through it, I couldn't help but think that conceptually it is actually sound. Because it really could potentially work as a nice movie tie-in arcade mobile game. And it's not like the core controls don't work. Levels are nothing special, but they're fine. Even lack of depth when it comes to enemies wouldn't be a problem if gameplay wouldn't have been riddled with a lot of little issues that make the overall experience quite frustrating. Which is why, if we open up all the possible scores for design, I will assign a 3 to this version of Return of the King. The game is on the right track, it just sadly didn't reach its final goal. Now let's talk about context. This category has weight of 1 as it's about things that enhance the experience rather than define it: story, characters, motivations, etc. Return of the King doesn't provide any sort of interesting ground for discussions for this or any other category for that matter, so we'll open up the scores straight away in each. I will assign a 3 to context. The game actually sets up your goal and what you're doing, so at least there's that. However, unless you know the source material, you won't really get why or any of the important details. Now, time for aesthetics. This is another category with a weight of 1, and it's about visual style, music, sounds. I will assign a 3 to this category too. Look, even though on your phone or PC monitor the footage that you have seen might look ugly, it works well enough for a small mobile phone screen. The single music track that exists is okay, and the sound effects, well, they aren't as annoying as those in the two towers. But the game also has a lot of environments that look unfinished, and in general implementation of everything feels largely boring and uninspired. Let's move on to Cohesion. This category has a weight of 2, and it's about how well the game connects all its different elements together. Here I will assign a 5. Return of the King is a game, and it's got a The Lord of the Rings skin. There is literally nothing else that I can say about it. Time to quickly discuss the last category, emotions. This category has the second biggest weight, 3. It's all about personal feelings, but these feelings matter a lot. I will assign a 4 here today. As mentioned in the design section, I could see how things could work, and at times there was a slither of enjoyment seeping in, but ultimately I didn't like the game. Let's summarize everything now. When all scores and weights are taken into account, Return of the King for mobile phones gets a final Stasocritic rating of 30. It is indeed a disappointing game. Now, I want to point out that in the context of my scoring system, 30 doesn't mean that the game is horrible. Some people can still enjoy it. It might even be you. But it's not a game that I personally would recommend to anyone, though I guess the fact that I have barely spent any time talking about most of its elements shows that there is not a lot that I find to be particularly interesting in it, unlike the larger console and handheld counterparts. So if you're interested in the Return of the King tie-in, I would suggest one of those games. Thank you all for watching. Feel free to leave your comments below if you want, and like and subscribe if you have enjoyed watching this. A special thank you goes to all my patrons. Their support means a lot, especially when I discuss forgotten to history lost obscure titles. If you enjoy what I'm doing, feel free to check out my campaign at patreon.com/Farlands. Thank you.